on it, as did a number of other member states. So I'm happy to answer questions in relation to any of those things.
So just on Gaza, look, what was your sense from the mood in the room? Obviously, we had this building of pressure on Israel, and then Kaja Kallas has come out with her deal she secured with Israel since then. Did you feel that the pressure has somewhat been lifted? What was the mood in the room, as I said?
We don't want to see the pressure lifted. In fact, we want to see leverage. So we know that we have leverage. We know that the agreement that Kaja Kallas entered into last week with Israel is only as a result of the leverage from the room in terms of the pressure that everybody's putting on. So we need to understand that we have that leverage. That dialogue is very important, but it's not enough. We need to use leverage in our dialogue to get results. And like everything else, it will be the implementation of this agreement, and the High Representative has indicated that she'll update Member States every 2 weeks on this. But so far we haven't really seen the implementation of it. Maybe some very small actions, but there's still slaughter going on. There's still a denial of access to food and water as well. And that has been outlined, and that's obvious. So we need to see action, and we need to use our leverage in this situation.
Mr. Simon, because we have this options paper. Is Ireland pushing for example, a suspension of the agreement, parts of the agreement?
Everything on the table. But we think it's really, really important to focus on the situation there in Gaza at the moment. If we start focusing on one option, then the debate just becomes about an option and we forget about everything else. So keep everything on the table and keep reminding ourselves of what is actually happening on the ground. That's the important part of it, and keep making our position clear. I was really glad that the French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot announced that the two-state solution conference, which was postponed a number of weeks ago, will take place now at the end of July. Ireland is to chair a working group at that. I think that's very, very important. It's something that we put forward. But we're talking here about the rights and the human dignity of the people in Palestine. We're talking about international humanitarian law and the obligations of states, but also our own obligations as well under international humanitarian law. And I certainly reminded the meeting of our view on that, as did a number of other member states.
Was there any further detail? Because this is one of the things that we didn't get when the agreement was announced. Was there any detail provided to member states in terms of maybe the amount of trucks that Israel has committed it would let in to Gaza as part of the deal?
We haven't got a written agreement, so I mean the detail is always going to be difficult to ascertain. The High Representative outlined some of the provisions, some of the ways that this would work, but again we haven't seen yet that working to the extent that it needs to work, and we do look forward to her updating us on a regular basis. And I think we do need to give that a chance, but we need a lot of other things to happen as well. I mean, we need sanctions on the violent settlers as well. I mean, that's something the European Council agreed, and now our Hungarian friends appear to be sort of rowing back a little bit in that. And we all, I think, other than Hungary, agreed on that. That needs to happen. But there's so many other things that we should and can be doing, and there's certainly a mood among member states to do that. Among the member states that you would have seen before making comments similar to us or in the spectrum towards us, but there's still obviously division at the council table, and we would argue that there are some aspects of these policies that we can do by qualified majority voting, but you have to get a proposal from the Commission. We don't have proposals from the Commission yet, and then we'll be told, of course, that some of these items need to be taken by unanimity, and we won't get unanimity around the table. So our position is going to keep pressing very, very strongly, engaging with all member states and trying to get results on it.
One small, very follow-up on that. Did the High Representative come with a preference of the options, and was there any decision taken on any of the options? Or
there was no decision taken on any of the options. I mean, look, sure, there's lots of people around the table who don't exercise any of the options and who don't agree with taking further actions. They want dialogue, and yes, we want dialogue as well, but dialogue with leverage, dialogue with strength.
On Georgia, is
this going at the moment? Yeah.
On yesterday's meeting on tariffs, so we've seen the list now, the 72 billion. All the sensitive items that Ireland wanted taken off there, well, most are still on there. Do you see that as a failure of Irish diplomacy? Do you still hope to get some items off that list? And what effects are coming for the Irish economy if those tariffs go into effect?
This is not the EU's fault. This is not a responsibility of the European Union. The responsibility is with America in terms of the letter that we got at the weekend, and countermeasures have to be there in reserve. They have to be there in reserve. Yes, we all have national interests, and there are some items that aren't on it that maybe other people may have suggested be on it, so we have some taken off it. But at the end of the day, it's like everything else, we need a strong hand, and we need to be able to say to the Americans that if you do this, then these countermeasures will be put in place, and they will affect your economy and your products, and they're proportionate, they're similar value, etc. But the truth is, what works for us and what works for the Americans is a trade agreement at no or low tariffs. That's what's going to work. That's the solution to all of this. We have to keep the dialogue up, but like everything else, is dialogue with strength. And we have to keep these things in reserve, and we have to have a strong negotiating position. We're talking here about Irish jobs, European jobs, Irish business, Irish investment, and European business and investment too. And that's really, really important. So we need to talk. We need to keep the lines of communication open. The American government under President Trump needs to make a decision as well as to whether they want an agreement, because I think that will benefit them and it will benefit us too. It will create jobs in Kentucky as much as it will create jobs in Meath. But it hasn't been clear up to now whether the American government wants an agreement at the end of the day. Yes, there's a lot of work that's been done between Commissioner Šefčovič and his counterparts, but it has to go to the President. We haven't seen evidence yet that they want a deal, other than what President Trump said, that he does want trade deals. He said that in general terms some time ago. So we have a couple of weeks. The Commission is our full support to negotiate hard, but to negotiate leading to an agreement that will bring benefits to all sides.
Are you okay with those tariffs going into effect on Boeing and Bourbon?
Okay with any tariffs. What the Commissioner said yesterday, and he said this publicly, is that a 30% tariff would end trade on both sides. That would be catastrophic for us, for Europe, and for America. So this is really a really serious situation. The stakes are very, very high, and we need negotiation. And we want an agreement, and we have to see, do the Americans want an agreement? Do they also want to benefit their economy and help create jobs on their side as well, as we want to preserve and create jobs here?
Did you talk about the situation in Syria?
The situation in Syria has been discussed. Again, it was discussed last night at the Union for the Mediterranean meeting, and indeed at the at the FAC this morning. But the focus, and it was great to see the Syrian representatives at the meeting last night. The focus obviously wasn't. The main focus wasn't on a range of other issues, but the issue of Syria was discussed. Yes. Okay. Thanks. Bye.
zdalnego ministra spraw zagranicznych Ukrainy. Wiemy, że prezydent Trump ogłosił, iż Stany Zjednoczone wyprodukują sprzęt dla Ukrainy. Zapytałem kolegów ministrów o to, kto ma za ten sprzęt zapłacić. Czy europejscy podatnicy, czy lepiej, moim zdaniem, żeby zapłacił za to agresor z zamrożonych środków. Sytuacja Ukrainy jest dramatyczna. Putin zwiększył ataki na cele cywilne i mamy nadzieję, że ten okres 50 dni przed wejściem ewentualnych amerykańskich sankcji to jest okres na zwiększanie nacisku na Federację Rosyjską, aby się wreszcie opamiętała. Poparłem dyplomację intensywną wysokiej przedstawiciel w sprawie ulżenia cierpieniom mieszkańców Gazy, tak aby pomoc humanitarna wreszcie zaczęła tam docierać. Polska uznaje prawo do Izraela do życia w bezpiecznych, międzynarodowo uznanych granicach, ale jednocześnie prawo humanitarne, nienadużywanie siły też muszą być przestrzegane. Wyraziłem też poparcie dla wprowadzenia sankcji dla fundamentalistów żydowskich na zachodnim brzegu, którzy w ostatnich dniach próbowali podpalić chrześcijański kościół z V wieku, kościół świętego Jerzego, jedna z ostatnich chrześcijańskich palestyńskich wiosek. Spotkałem się z byłym premierem Gruzji, który mnie poinformował o prześladowaniach wobec opozycji w tym kraju. Polska już przerzuciła środki ze wspierania rządu gruzińskiego w aspiracjach europejskich, bo ewidentnie Gruzja zeszła z tej ścieżki, na wspieranie społeczeństwa obywatelskiego. Będziemy też badać możliwości objęcia sankcjami winnych prześladowań. W tej chwili mamy dyskusję o Unii dla Morza Śródziemnego. Z innych spraw, jak Państwo wiecie, Ministerstwo Spraw Zagranicznych złożyło demarsz w Stolicy Apostolskiej protestujący przeciwko skandalicznym wypowiedziom dwóch polskich biskupów. Wreszcie chciałbym Państwu powiedzieć, że nie widzę podstaw do przyznania Orderu Orła Białego panu Bąkiewiczowi.
Chciałem zapytać o Watykan. Niektórzy zarzucają panu, że ingeruje pan w wolność słowa, prawo do wypowiedzi, które mają również hierarchowie kościelni.
No tak, pan Braun też ma wolność wypowiedzi, ale zaprzeczanie Holokaustowi jest w Polsce karalne. I tak samo ingerowanie w politykę partyjną jest niezgodne z konkordatem. Wolność wypowiedzi wiąże się z odpowiedzialnością za słowo.
Panie ministrze, mogę zapytać o 18 pakiet sankcji. Słowacja podtrzymała weto. Czy myśli pan, że uda się złagodzić opór Słowacji i nie wiem, najpóźniej jutro da zgodę?
To nasz wielki i piękny pakiet sankcji i mam nadzieję, że zostanie przyjęty już raczej w ciągu godzin, a nie dni.
Czyli jeszcze dziś.
Godzin to znaczy, że może jutro.
Panie ministrze, chciałam zapytać o koalicję. Czy PSL powinno wycofać rekomendacje dla pana Michała Kamińskiego na stanowisko wicemarszałka po tym spotkaniu marszałka Hołowni?
Nie będę się wtrącał w suwerenne decyzje zaprzyjaźnionego stronnictwa.
Jak pan ocenia wczorajsze spotkanie Ruttego z Donaldem Trumpem? 50 dni to nie za długo?
Bardzo się cieszę z tego, że prezydent Stanów Zjednoczonych doszedł do tych wniosków, do których jako Unia Europejska doszliśmy wcześniej, mianowicie, że Putin nie chce pokoju, to Ukraina godzi się na bezwarunkowe zawieszenie broni i że jedyny język, jaki Putin rozumie, to język nacisku.
Panie ministrze, jeszcze o koalicji. Jak pan ocenia decyzję pana marszałka Hołowni o pójściu na urlop w trakcie, kiedy trwają rozmowy o rekonstrukcji
Nie
rządu?
oceniam.
Panie ministrze, powiedział pan, że to jest piękny pakiet. Czy utrzyma się limit cenowy na rosyjską ropę?
Powinniśmy go obniżyć, bo cena rynkowa ropy jest dzisiaj poniżej naszego limitu. Taki limit nie ma sensu. Więc jeśli opłacalność eksportu ropy ma się obniżyć, to limit powinien być niższy, a sankcje za łamanie różnych zakazów powinny być większe. To jest nie tylko źródło dochodów budżetowych Rosji, to jest także zagrożenie, w tym środowiskowe, dla wielu akwenów. Przypominam, że tankowce z tej floty cieni, pływające statki bez ubezpieczenia pod jakimiś podejrzanymi banderami albo w ogóle bez bander, już się zderzały. Taka katastrofa na płytkim, zamkniętym morzu, jakim jest Bałtyk, miałaby katastrofalne skutki dla fauny i flory.
Spotka się pan jeszcze raz ze Sławomirem Mencenem na piwie? Jest wokół tego spory
Na razie nie ma planów.
Minister Trump said that he would impose tariffs, secondary tariffs on Russia if Russian President Vladimir Putin does not reach a ceasefire deal with Ukraine in 50 days. Does Ukraine have 50 days?
Oh yes, I think at the current rate someone has calculated that it would take Russia 70 years to conquer Ukraine.
As I understood you correctly, you met today ex-Prime Minister of Georgia, Giorgi Gaharia.
Yes.
Which issues he raised, and also if already dialogue and discussion on Georgia is finished already, and what Poland's position regarding Georgia?
Poland supports the policy of the High Representative on Georgia, which is at this stage to try to persuade the Georgian government to cease persecuting the opposition. I met the Prime Minister, whose charges seem to me completely fake, and we support Georgian society in their European aspirations. And we hope that the government of Georgia does what it promised in the election rather than what it is delivering, which is a course away from Europe.
Excuse me.
Panie ministrze, to ja jeszcze tylko proszę o ocenę decyzji prezydenta Dudy o częściowym ułaskawieniu pana Bąkiewicza.
No ja już chyba powiedziałem, że nie popieram przyznania Orderu Orła Białego panu Bąkiewiczowi, tak jak nie popierałem przyznania tego orderu konfabulantowi, partaczowi Macierewiczowi.
Jest także panowie... Excuse me.
Minister, please, what is the mechanism to provide Ukraine weapons? There is details about that or not?
But we are providing Ukraine weapons by various means. There is the Czech ammunition initiative. There is EPF funds which have been disbursed, but the refunds are not reaching member states because Hungary is blocking it. The SAFE mechanism, 150 billion euros, also allows for partnerships with Ukrainian defense factories. There is, of course, bilateral help. Poland is on its 47th donation. The last few ones, at least, are 100 million euros each or so. Some countries are very generous. Holland, Germany, Baltic states, Scandinavian countries. So there are various mechanisms, and I am of the view, with the majority of member states, that Ukraine's claims for the damage that Russia has caused on the frozen Russian assets are bigger than the Russian claim, because Russia is the aggressor. Remember, the UN General Assembly condemned the Russian invasion as an act of aggression. That actually puts a duty on the international community to take countermeasures. And the first countermeasure is to help the victim of aggression defend herself. And I think it would be fair for those funds to be used to help the victims.
On its package of sanctions, what's the main obstacles to adopt it today or tomorrow, new package of sanctions? What's the main problem?
Ask Hungary and Slovakia.
Did you discuss about the situation now in Syria or about Iran? When yes, what exactly?
Iran and Syria was not directly on the agenda. The Middle East in general was. but we hope that Syria continues on the path of creating an inclusive government, and I hope that Iran comes into compliance and cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Committee, so that we can agency, so that we can establish the facts about the fate of the enriched uranium and the fate of the enrichment program.
Mr. Minister, as we know, among the measures, possible measures on Georgia is a visa-free regime, a suspension of visa-free regime, as Kaja Kallas today informed us. So what is the position of official Warsaw? Will you support suspension of visa-free for Georgia?
Well, I was born in communist Poland. It was an authoritarian regime, but which allowed us in some periods to travel abroad. And at that time, we particularly appreciated countries like Austria, Sweden, West Berlin, that allowed us visa-free access. It was a window to the world to us. So we think that restrictions should be put on those who are responsible for repression and not on the people of Georgia. Dziękuję bardzo. Thank you.
Minister do spraw europejskich Niemiec powiedział dzisiaj rano, że 17 pakietów sankcji, które zostały dotychczas przyjęte, nie przyniosło wystarczających rezultatów. Czy pan się z tym zgadza? Dlatego trzeba przyjąć kolejne mocniejsze pakiety.
Zgadzam się w większości, natomiast proszę pamiętać, że sankcje to nie jest coś, co się narzuca raz i potem już można spocząć na laurach. Podam panu przykład. W 18 pakiecie sankcji jest wciągnięcie na listę sankcyjną 100 kilkudziesięciu kolejnych statków z tak zwanej floty cieni, na której już jest prawie 500 statków, plus minus. Bo to tak jest, że sankcje zawsze muszą być kroczące, bo kraje i firmy naruszające sankcje wymyślają nowe sposoby na ich obchodzenie i my musimy ciągle tworzyć instrumenty na to, aby te sankcje były efektywne. Dziękuję bardzo.
Dziękuję bardzo, miłego. Bien, bonsoir. Welcome to the press conference following the Foreign Affairs Council. The High Representative will brief you on the discussions with the ministers, and then we will open the floor to your questions. High Representative, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. We just concluded the Foreign Affairs Council, and there were many important issues on the agenda, and had very good discussions. So first, on Ukraine. Russia's bombing campaign has reached record levels, and we see increasing use of banned chemical weapons by Russia in Ukraine. All this shows that Russia does not want peace, and in response, the EU is set to approve one of its toughest sanctions package against Russia. So I'm really sad that we didn't reach this agreement today. I must say that we were really close to reassure Slovakia. The Commission has delivered what they asked for. Now the ball is in Slovakia's court, and we must get this deal done. It has been already 2 months. Sanctions are necessary to starve Russia of the means to wage this war. And the European Union will keep raising the cost, so stopping its aggression becomes the only path forward to Moscow. We welcome President Trump's announcement to send more weapons to Ukraine, although we would like to see US to share the burden. America and Europe are working together, and if we are working together, this can put the pressure on Putin to negotiate seriously. The only way to get Putin to end this war is to force his hand. And last week also brought some other important commitments. We had the Rome Conference for Reconstruction, and this conference pledged 10 billion euros to help rebuild Ukraine. And the Coalition of the Willing reassurance force will help Ukraine defend itself against any future attack of Russia. The message is very clear. Russia's efforts are wasted. Europe is wholly committed to Ukraine. Then the second big topic we had, of course, Middle East. So last week, Israel and the European Union reached an understanding for the expansion of the humanitarian aid into Gaza. So we see positive signs. We see more trucks and supplies are reaching Gaza. We see more entry points opened. We also see electricity lines being repaired. But Israel needs to take more concrete steps to improve the humanitarian situation on the ground. The European Union will keep a close watch on how Israel implements this common understanding and the pledges, and will update the compliance every 2 weeks. As we go forward, ministers make clear that ceasefire and hostage release deal remain a priority. At the request of the European Council, I also presented ministers an inventory of different measures that could be taken in relation to the review done in June. So we had a discussion on this, and these are choices that the member states have to make. We will keep these options on the table and stand ready to act if Israel does not live up to its pledges. The aim is not to punish Israel. The aim is to really improve the situation in Gaza. On Iran, ministers reiterated that Iran should not have any nuclear weapons, and diplomacy is the best way and long-term approach to achieve this goal. While the ceasefire is fragile, it offers an opportunity to resume the negotiations, and ministers urged immediately to restart the talks and allow also the United Nations inspectors back in. So the European Union is ready to negotiate. On Georgia, the assault on democracy by Georgian Dream is growing more severe. Today, ministers took stock of EU support to civil society and discussed different options. What more can we do? These include suspending the visa-free regime, the association agreement, and sanctions. Georgia's democratic backsliding will come at cost. And finally, Moldova, the first ever Moldova-EU summit was earlier this month, and it underscored that the European Union is fully committed to Moldova's EU accession. Moldova is now preparing for very high-stakes parliamentary elections coming in autumn, and these polls will be a prime target of Moscow's hybrid war. So today we had a good discussion on that, and today ministers also agreed to impose sanctions on people and entities that aim to destabilize Moldova. We also agreed to deliver more counter-hybrid support, especially before the elections. And this shows that the European Union is determined to safeguard Moldova's democratic process against external interference. So I will stop here and take your questions. Thank you.
Perfect. We will start with Joachim.
No worries. Hello, Joachim Clementi from National Estonian Public Broadcasting. Sorry. So, what happens with the sanctions package now? I'm reading a tweet from Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico, which says that the Commission is giving them insufficient guarantees, nothing in terms of what they want. He says something that he wants is an exemption from the REPowerEU plan to stop all energy imports into the EU, to fulfill their contracts with Gazprom until 2034. So is the Commission willing to grant concessions in this long-term REPowerEU plan to get this sanctions package over the line, or what happens from now with the package?
These negotiations have been ongoing for quite some time, and as you see, the Commission, the President of the Commission also sent a letter to Prime Minister of Slovakia, reiterating all the things that were really addressing the concerns that they had, and so far it seemed okay. So I don't know what happened in between, probably something in domestic politics, but it is important that we stick to these points. I mean, if you go into negotiations or worries you have, then if your sensitivities are addressed, then it's I think it's important that you don't present anything on top of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Follow up, please. Yes.
So you said to the morning that maybe tomorrow as well, if not today. Is this still what you're hoping for, or what happens from now?
Yeah. No, I was hoping for today, so we really, in the end, really made one final push for that as well. But tomorrow is the discussions also on the technical level. So yes, I'm optimistic and still hopeful that we will reach the decision tomorrow. I want to emphasize that this has been going on for 2 months, so trying to find a solution. And I think the messages also that come from different parts of the world, really understanding that we need to put the pressure on Russia. So we should also deliver on that. But at the same time, when I'm saying this, then we have 27 different democracies with 27 different public opinions and oppositions as well, so we need to navigate in that process. But I'm still hopeful that we will get the decision tomorrow.
Vitaly, yes. Vitaly.
Vitaly Sizov, Freedom. From your point of view, how reasonable this request of Slovakia? This first question, and the second question, maybe you discuss the possibility of usage frozen assets to pay for American weapons and to send it for Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not up to me to assess whether requests are reasonable or not. It is every Prime Minister comes from their own political situation and the worries that are domestically there. So I wouldn't give my assessment, and it doesn't matter anyhow. I mean, the requests are there. When it comes to your other question was, yes, exactly. It is clear that we need more and more funding to stop this war, to Ukraine defend itself, and also to really help Ukraine to defend itself. Now, we have very different views on the frozen assets between the member states. So we have agreed to have a discussion on frozen assets only in the Gimnich format that we have in August with the ministers, because it's important that everybody hears everybody's arguments, and then we can also come up with compromises to address these sensitivities, because I think in the end we all have our own public opinions. We have our taxpayers, and our taxpayers are asking, why isn't Russia, who is causing all the damage, paying for this damage and all the needs that there are? And this is a fair question.
Thank you. We'll go on the front for Nick here. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick from Politico. I just wanted to ask you to expand a little bit on the use of chemical weapons in Ukraine. Is that coming from your own information sources? You're getting that from the Ukrainians? And what was the sort of response in the room? Are we condemning that as the EU? It seems like it's crossing a red line. And the other one on Georgia, you mentioned this morning that a letter was sent from the Commission to Georgia. Just wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit what was in that letter and what might be the next steps there.
Thank you. This on the chemical weapons. This was the information from the Dutch and German intelligence on this, that they are using the chemical weapons, and of course that it's intensifying, and it's actually public sources as well. I mean, the Minister of Defense of Netherlands has published this. I will not read it out, also the details there, but it was also surprising for me to hear that since the start of the large-scale invasion in 2022, Russia has carried out more than 9,000 chemical weapons attacks on Ukrainian troops. So that's quite significant, and as these intelligence services are saying that this is intensifying, then I think it's of great concern. Again, it shows that Russia wants to cause as much pain and suffering as possible so that Ukraine would surrender, and it's really, unbearable, and that's why we are taking all these steps. Now, on your other question, when it comes to the letter to Georgia, then, as you know, we have the visa-free travel regime for Georgia since 2017, and this is a big benefit that European Union is giving to countries, and therefore there are recommendations which have been addressed to Georgia in the 7th Visa Suspension Mechanism report. And I will not read it all out here, but I'm just putting a point on this. For example, the obligations that the Georgian government has to ensure and uphold the protection of fundamental rights of all Georgian citizens, including the freedoms of association, assembly and expression, the right to privacy, the right to participate in public affairs, as well as the prohibition of discrimination. This is just one point. And there are 8 points like this. So the point being that as they have been giving a deadline until the end of August to comply with this, then the question is how do we then react if these recommendations have not been fulfilled. And as we hear that, for example, 7 opposition leaders out of 8 have been put in jail, this is not really in accordance with the first point that I pointed out. I mean, so then so far we have kept this position that we don't want to hurt Georgian people, and taking away the visa-free regime is really having an impact on them. But at the same time, it's also an issue of credibility of the European Union. If we have asked those things, and this is something beneficial or bonus that we are giving to this country, they are not complying with these conditions, then there are also consequences in order for the public also to see that the government is not on the European path and is not, taking the candidacy status seriously.
We'll go over there. Max Olivier, AFP.
Thanks a lot. Max Delaney from AFP. Oh, sorry. But in your introduction, you said that you welcome Donald Trump's initiative to on the weapons to arm Ukraine, but you want the US to share the burden. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that a bit more? You mean that you don't think it's right that the US is just asking Europe and Canada to pay for all of these weapons?
Well, if we pay for these weapons, it's our support. So it's European support. And we are doing as much as we can to help Ukraine, and therefore the call is that everybody would do the same. It's if you promise to give the weapons but say that somebody else who is going to pay for it, it's not really given by you, is it?
And we'll take a last one over there. Noureddin.
Noureddin Fridi, Al-Arabiya. Madam High Representative, on the agreement you had with Israel last Friday, since then dozens and dozens of Palestinians are being killed, and as you said, you are going to follow that very closely and report maybe in 2 weeks' time. Madam High Representative, if I look to the agenda, we are in the summer break now. No next FAC until October. Means that the Palestinian, hundreds of Palestinians could be killed in them. So my question is, as the agreement is not fully implemented now, which guarantee you may have soon to let know the Israelis that there are some leverage and instrument should be activated? And I understood that there is no instrument in your hand today. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, of course, it is important, the implementation of the agreement. And yes, we see some worrying signs, but we also see some good signs. I mean, like I said, the border crossings have been opened. We see more trucks going in. We see also reparations of the electricity network and such things, but it's clearly not enough because the situation is still untenable. Now, we agreed that this briefing, our people are constant contact with the international actors on the ground, and also Israel, also the neighboring countries that are, having the control of the crossing points so that they can say what is the actual numbers that are going in. And we agreed that we are doing this via the PSC ambassadors. So every 2 weeks, weeks, they get updates what is the situation on the ground. Now, the only guarantee we have is that the inventory of all the options that could be taken by the member states is presented, and if the situation is not going to improve, then the member states are also willing to take next steps, because the goal is to improve the situation, because it's really untenable, the humanitarian situation. I mean, we reached this common understanding the end of last week. Today we are in Tuesday. We also heard from our Jordanian counterparts that yes, it's more aid going in, and we see some positive signs. And of course, I mean, we need to do more. That's very clear, and we keep on monitoring this. But we do this hand in hand with our international counterparts who are on the ground, like the World Food Programme and who are there. What I want to stress is that why is it much harder right now than it was when there was a ceasefire? Because the war is going on. Also the providers of humanitarian aid are actually at risk. So that's why it's so much more complicated. But we are really trying to, I mean, we are putting the pressure and keeping the pressure, and all the member states are really following up on this. I shared, the details of those things. It's not that we are counting every truck all the time, but it's, I think that the trend and whether we see, tangible improvement or we don't see that. I think that's the overall conclusion.
And this brings our press conference to an end. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Oh, right.